All right, so we're diving into something pretty cool today, text-to-image generation. Specifically, we're looking at Google Cloud's Imagen on Vertex AI.
Yeah.
Using, of course, the Google Cloud documentation as our guide. And the real mission here is understanding how to really craft these prompts to get the visuals that you actually want.
One thing that's really key to grasp up front with Imagen is that it's not just looking for keywords, you know? It's really understanding this visual scene that you're describing. It's almost like, directing a very literal, very powerful artist by specifying these core elements, like the who or what, that's your subject, the where and when, that's your context.
Right.
And then the artistic lens, which is your style. A very basic example they have in the documentation is a sketch of a modern apartment building surrounded by skyscrapers.
Okay, so even with like a shorter prompt, like something like a park in the spring next to a lake, you're still gonna get an image, right?
Right. Absolutely.
But here's where it starts to get really interesting, right? The more descriptive you are,
right,
the more control you have.
Yeah.
So, that simple park scene can become a park in the spring next to the sunsets across the lake, golden. Like it really is about layering these details.
Exactly. And I think as you experiment, you'll probably find yourself iterating on those prompts and refining them as you go.
Absolutely.
Now, Imagen 3, the latest version, is quite sophisticated. It can handle both short and long prompts to generate really detailed images.
Yeah.
And the documentation really advises using really descriptive language.
Oh.
Using those vivid adjectives and adverbs, providing context is crucial.
Okay.
And if you have a specific artistic style in mind, like referencing actual artists or art movements, can really steer the AI in that direction.
Oh, that's interesting.
They even suggest looking into prompt engineering tools.
Oh, wow.
For some really advanced tweaking.
So it's not just about creating like a whole new image. You can actually add text to images.
Absolutely. Imagen 3 can insert text into images, which is a game changer for, creating quick mock-ups or adding labels, things like that.
Right.
There are a few tips, though. Keeping the text short, ideally under 25 characters, seems to work best. You can try up to 3 short phrases.
Okay.
You can't precisely dictate placement yet.
Gotcha.
But you can inspire the font style and size.
Okay.
They have a nice example of this. I think it was the Summerland poster example they showed in the documentation.
That makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, the documentation talks about prompt parameterization, which sounds really useful for developers.
Yeah, this is where it gets really powerful when you're integrating Imagen into applications. So instead of hard coding your prompts, you can create these dynamic templates. So for example, imagine a template like logo style logo for your company on a background color background.
Okay.
And then users could select from, predefined styles, company areas, background colors.
Wow, that's super cool.
Right. So it allows for customization while still maintaining brand consistency, things like that.
That's really smart. So let's talk about styling.
Yeah.
The docs break this down into photography and illustration.
Right.
And for photography, it really does seem like that key is starting with a photo of.
Right. So, a photo of coffee beans in a kitchen is a very clear starting point.
Yeah.
For art styles, you'd use phrases like a painting of or a sketch of.
Right.
And what's fascinating is how a very basic subject, like, let's say an angular, sporty electric sedan with skyscrapers in the background can be rendered in so many different ways.
Right.
Just by changing that initial phrase.
Yeah.
It could be a technical pencil drawing, a charcoal drawing, a pastel painting, digital art.
Right.
So many options.
So, we could define the kind of the broad style.
Yeah.
But then you've got these advanced modifiers that let you get like really, really specific.
Exactly.
For photography, we're talking about things like camera proximity. So, close-up versus wide shot.
Exactly. Notice how specifying a close-up photo of coffee beans versus a zoomed out photo of a bag of coffee beans on a messy kitchen counter
Right.
immediately changes, the focus and the level of detail.
Totally.
You can also control the camera angle, so an aerial view versus looking up from below,
Okay.
and playing with lighting, natural light versus dramatic shadows,
Right.
to set a certain mood.
Wow.
And then it goes even further into actual camera settings, like motion blur or bokeh, even specifying lens types. So macro lens for extreme close-ups, or
Right.
fisheye for that distorted wide-angle view.
That's really cool.
Yeah, think about how, photo of a leaf, macro lens,
Yeah.
will really highlight those tiny details you wouldn't normally see. You can even emulate different film types,
Oh, wow.
like classic black and white or that vintage Polaroid effect.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Now, beyond photography, you can actually get creative
Yeah.
with the subject itself by defining unusual materials or shapes. Something like a duffel bag made of cheese,
Yeah.
or neon tubes in the shape of a heart.
That's a great example.
Yeah.
And then for that specific artistic flavor, using in the style of, followed by an art movement, can really change things up. So, generating a wind farm in the style of an impressionist painting,
Right.
versus in the style of a Renaissance painting,
Wow.
produces strikingly different results.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And don't forget about image quality, right?
Yeah, this is a big one.
Like simply adding keywords like high quality, beautiful, or even specifying a resolution like 4K can significantly enhance the output.
Absolutely. And they have a great example of this in the documentation with the cornstalk example,
Right.
where they show the difference with and without those quality modifiers.
Yeah, that's super important.
Absolutely.
Now, aspect ratios
Yeah.
are also really important for tailoring your images.
They are. You've got options like square, widescreen, portrait, each suited for different uses. They have a great example using the full screen aspect ratio. It's a musician playing piano in black and white film.
Oh, cool.
And it creates, a really specific visual feel.
Right.
And then there are negative prompts.
Oh, yeah, this is a really clever trick.
It is.
It's basically telling Imagen what you don't want to see,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
By describing the elements
Yeah.
that you want to omit.
So instead of saying, no greenery,
Right.
you would use a negative prompt like greenery, plants, foliage, trees,
Okay.
to steer it away from those things.
Gotcha. So finally, like, if you want to achieve those really photorealistic results,
Right.
the documentation gives some tailored advice based on what you're trying to depict.
Well, yeah, they really break it down by use case.
Right.
So portraits, objects, motion, wide angle.
Right.
And they even suggest, relevant lens types
Oh, wow.
and focal lengths to consider. So for example, for a photorealistic portrait,
Yeah.
they might suggest using a prime lens
Okay.
with a 24-35 millimeter focal length, mentioning black and white film, shallow depth of field.
So it's really clear that crafting these effective prompts,
Yeah.
it really is a skill.
It is.
It's a combination of clear communication, specific details,
Absolutely.
and just a willingness to experiment.
Don't be afraid to iterate and refine your prompts to get closer to your vision.
So here's a thought for you. With this power to generate images from text, how might this capability actually impact your own work? Or even ignite, new creative ideas?
Right.
What kind of surprising visuals could you now bring into being?
That's a great question.
The Google Cloud documentation has even more advanced techniques to explore, so go ahead and dive deeper.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for having me.